Welcome back to Pixels and Pints for another episode of Even Crazy Craziness. Actually, before I get into it, with me today is Tom.
Hello.
And Dan.
Hi.
And obviously the format's a little bit different today because we've just been thrown into a lockdown. So pretty much it started with Sydney CBD yesterday and has just been extended like 14 minutes ago to cover pretty much all of Sydney. So we're in lockdown for the next couple of weeks, and we thought since we're already late for an episode, we may as well try a remote video episode. So bear with us. This may not work, and the quality's certainly not going to be what you're used to, but we have to do what we've got to do. It's a small sacrifice given what's going on in the world.
And the people need their Pixels and Pints, and we will get it to them.
The hardest part's going to be not talking over each other because the video audio stream doesn't match together quite as well as being in person.
No, I'm not watching it because it's really throwing me out. So you're going to see my eyes are just above because I can't look at it. It's completely fucking with my head.
That's fine.
The voices again.
That's fine. Yeah, we will. Well, I'm going to review some beeries. I've got a couple to review and some other stock to drink throughout the show. I don't know if you guys have got something to talk to.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Well, what are you guys drinking right now as starters? Because I'm assuming they're not review beers. They're just Dan's boss level. Nice.
Way to kick things off there, young Daniel.
Yeah, fuck it. And this is how much is left. So.
And what are you drinking, Tom?
There you go. I have the Bodriggy from Victoria. Their Fuzzy Dance Explosion Hazy Tropical Sour. That's a little can. Drinking out of my little ball sack glass.
I'm surprised they didn't need one of the tall cans just to fit the name of the fucking beer on it.
Fuzzy Dance Explosion. Should be like Guardians of the Galaxy themed or something.
And I've got Wayward's Cashmere Cat, which is the new version of the Cashmere Cat limited release.
I've got a Cashmere Hazy too here from Frenchies. So we've got comparisons.
There you go.
Yep. Well, not in room comparisons, but comparisons.
I also have
a good drop too.
A stupid beer to review later, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, I've got a barrel aged as well.
What was that, Tom?
Cool. It apparently contains edible glitter.
So
that's going to be a really weird poop.
Beer.
You know, I had a brewer in the brewery. She'd left about this time last year, and she was constantly asking me to do an edible glitter beer because Two Birds did one, and she was a big fan of Two Birds, so she wanted to do one as well. And I'm like, look, you can do it, but it's then your responsibility to clean every piece of equipment that comes into contact with, and then you've got to wash it out, and there cannot be a trace of it any further because that's just a nightmare. So, she decided that she didn't want to clean everything top to bottom and be responsible for glitter appearing in the next batch of pale ale. So she decided against it. And she was going to do a single keg brew of it, but I don't think she ever got around to it. I think she did the recipe, but then we ran out of time and didn't get through it.
Mm. You know what I've noticed bugs me recently, and I won't name the bottle shop, but it's a small bottle shop in the CBD. It's not a specialty craft bottle shop. They've got like one Coke fridge-sized, craft section, and then they've got all the standard crappy beer that, I can't buy. And then primarily it sells wine and some fucking great whiskies, like 25-year-old Macmillan whiskies and those sorts of things. But every single time I go in there, I know there's a guy who's got to be on the spectrum somewhere because just the way that he interacts with the general public. And I get a lecture about his home brew and how he disagrees with the craft process. And it's just like, look, I just came in here to buy some fucking grog, man. I don't need your commentary on my selections for the day and your disagreement with the concept of double dry hopping, and you don't want it to taste like vegetal and like you're chewing on a cone. I don't care. Just fucking ring up my beer and let me go.
You should try working the retail side of a brewery then. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry walks in and tells you how they're brewing and what they're next brewing and how it's going to be the next biggest thing. You're like, okay, sure. Yep, okay.
It's like a 6-year-old with some hand paint walking up to Leonardo da Vinci and giving him a critique. It's just like, okay, cool. What works for you, man?
And so much of it's personal taste as well. I mean, homebrewers are going to brew what they want to drink. That's perfectly fine. I mean, that's why you are brewing at home, to learn, to experiment and brew beer you want to drink. I mean, you don't need to try and enforce that on other people. But that's not everybody either.
No, it's not everybody. But at the same time, I mean, if you've got some feedback to the brew house that are making the beer, that's one thing because you're a home brewer. But if you're a home brewer working in a bottle shop that's not attached to a brewing house, and you're telling random customers your personal opinions on their beer selection based on your homebrew experience, that's kind of different. To me, it's just like, it's not an opinion that you should be openly sharing unless someone enters into conversation with you about it. That's different.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Agreed.
We've had some big... You right there?
Yeah, I just forgot what I was doing.
Okay. Checking your email, I think. Or you've got your fans up on the other screen.
I was writing notes, and then I never got any further on it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I want to talk about... I mean, look, we've got E3, and I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about around E3.
Oh, God, really? There can't have been that much to talk about.
I watched 6 of the live streams. Not live, mind you, because I'm not an idiot. And I probably wrote out the names of 6 or 7 games that I wanted to pass comment on. Not all of them are, holy shit, I can't wait to play this game. In fact, most of them aren't. But I really want to talk about Loki. And I know you haven't seen it, Dan. But
nope.
We're up to episode 3, and I kind of want to talk about it broadly without too many... I don't know that you could even spoil it. Tom, you're up to date, aren't you?
You know who I am, right? It's a Marvel thing. Of course I'm up to date on it.
I don't think you could spoil it because there hasn't been any twists and turns. We're only halfway through the series anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my 10,000-foot view is it's the Mandalorian to Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's as close as I can kind of describe it at a high level. It is... and not because of the aesthetic. It isn't a rip-off of Mandalorian, but it is atmospheric and detailed and specific and interesting, and is exploring kind of new universe elements as much as new characters in a way that Mandalorian did for the Star Wars universe. And I dig the shit out of it. It's easily my favorite Marvel series so far. Easily.
It is, I mean, I think the aesthetic's amazing that they've gone with that whole, like, early 60s FBI, like, you kind of get those, like, Mindhunter vibes. Emma and I were saying when we were watching it. And it will be really cool to see where it goes.
I get a lot of Fallout. A lot of Fallout. So Dan, it's set in, you've got the Timekeepers. So I can't remember the full name for them, but they're basically the timekeepers of the sacred timeline. You've got 3 omnipotent beings deciding which version of historic time, or future timeline is the golden timeline that needs to be followed, and their responsibility is to send out a bunch of these time variant authority squad members, like the Adjustment Bureau, to basically wipe out any variation from the golden timeline that the timekeepers have decided on. But when you're in their kind of bureau, all of the screens have cartoon characters that are describing to the variants that have been arrested what's going on, and those cartoons are very Pip-Boy-esque from Fallout.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There's little tablets that they use for time travel, so they open portal doors through space and time, and the graphics on those tablets, and even the fact that they talk, the actual tablet says, "Hey, I'm out of juice," and it's got a little cartoon animated character on the screen. Yeah, it is. And even the kind of retro futuristic Art Deco almost aesthetic inside the Timekeeper Bureau is very Fallout. And then if you watch the credits at the end, it's 1920s talkies style music, which is exactly what you got at the start of the original Fallout trailer before it goes into, war never changes. So all that kind of aligns to that aesthetic, and I love that. But then the actual set pieces are so detailed, and they look like absolutely stunning. The latest episode had a shot where the two characters are walking towards a city, and you've got mountains kind of in the mid-ground, you've got the city in the background, and it's kind of the mountains are in silhouette, and it frames the silhouettes of the two characters who are tiny in the middle of the screen. It looks like a fucking poster, and it looks like almost a Tron-esque poster. Lots of deep purples and blues and pinks. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But apart from the aesthetic, the storyline is dark as fuck. The whole concept that there is no choice, there is no autonomy over your own destiny, that it's being decided by these three omnipotent beings. And so Tom Hiddleston's character is kind of, the first episode, he's struggling with this idea that he doesn't get to make any choices. No one gets to make any real choices about their life. And that it's all predetermined by these three god creatures from birth to death. So it doesn't really matter what the fuck you do in life. It doesn't matter what choice you make in life. So that's a big topic to cover in a 6-part miniseries. I love that they call that. But
it's better to cover it in that than try and cover it in a 2-hour movie.
True. Yeah, 100%. Very true. It's not a format that would have worked in a movie.
No.
Like, Tom Hiddleston is fucking jacked. He was always, kind of small but built in the movies, but he's fucking jacked in this. So he's obviously been working out. He looks great in his costumes. I love that they've called him out, that he keeps calling himself a god of mischief, but he's not a god of mischief, but he's a god of bloody fucking murder and backstabbing.
He's our age.
Sorry?
40. He's our age. He's 40.
Well, he's jacked for 40. And I just find the whole thing, and, obviously Sylvie is the main protagonist or antagonist. Loki's playing the anti-hero, so it's kind of a common story model. He has declared for the first time officially that he's bisexual, which is cool to see that they're going to kind of explore that. And there's already some gender bendering going on because Sylvie is supposed to be a variant of Loki, so they haven't really explored that in any kind of detail. But overall, I just find the series gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's creepy in its atmosphere, and I think that's really cool to sit there and watch. It's almost like a horror thriller movie.
Yeah, well, in original Norse mythology, Loki is gender bending and bisexual, and it gives birth to Odin's 8-legged horse. I think I've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Within the movie, it's all covered. So
I'm sure that was in one of the movies, in one of the Marvel, the MCU movies, that he coupled with a horse, or was that in? Maybe it was in AC Valhalla, and all blends together for me. I don't know.
I don't remember being in one of the Marvel movies, but it might have been mentioned too in a side comment.
Oh, no, they barely featured the 8-legged horse, so I don't think they would have had Loki giving birth to it.
Sveltnir, he only showed up in Thor, when Odin goes to Jotunheim.
Maybe it was, it must have been AC Valhalla, because you do go back to the Golden City and walk across the Rainbow Bridge and interact with all those original gods and goddesses.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Thanks for spoiling AC Valhalla for me.
That's not a spoiler. It's just a side quest. What? That you're playing a Viking game and you have flashbacks or peace-type flashbacks to the original Norse mythology? I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, Dan.
Don't worry, I've seen it. I was just giving you shit.
So yeah, Loki, I'm really impressed. It's the first Marvel series that I wait for the episodes to drop to watch them immediately. So very impressed. Hopefully we get more of that sort of stuff moving forward. Do you have anything to add on that, Tom?
Well, I mean, I don't get any of the horror stuff you're getting. I can see maybe thinking back on it. I think it's expertly acted. Tom Hiddleston, the way he's acting that character is fantastic. But yeah, I totally agree with the aesthetics. Like, I guess now you say more Pit Boyish. I get the whole Fallout thing, but like, yeah, I get that. I think probably my favourite scene so far was that scene in with the ticket in the first episode where he's going forward. It was just like,
yeah,
it just kind of like set the tone of like, I think like, well, yeah, I wouldn't say that thriller vibe, but I get like
it's
definitely
not,
the anti-hero.
Yeah, I think I've obviously misdescribed it, and it's not because you're disagreeing with me. It's just that thriller doesn't quite fit it. It's just I always feel on edge. It has that offbeat. Right. It's an offbeat kind of atmosphere throughout it. I mean, there's elements, there's sections where you know what's going to happen next, and they're sitting in a train having a conversation, and that's not kind of. You're not on edge there, but a lot of the time I just feel like at any moment some shit could pop out of a fucking portal door and totally change the story. And so you never really know where it's going to go into the next scene. And I'm really thoroughly enjoying that.
Oh, yeah, it's adding to it, definitely. But yeah, I think that makes more sense. So when you said thriller, I was just like, I don't really get that vibe. But
it did have a whodunit, and her passing, so Sylvie, the main antagonist, passing her mind control from person to person like a virus was off-putting as fuck, because you're having a conversation. Loki's having a conversation with one personality through the voices of like 6 different people that keep popping up next to him to continue the conversation. And it reminded me, and that's probably why I used the word thriller, it reminded me of the Denzel Washington movie where he's fighting against the demon who passes between characters by touch. I wish I could remember the name. Thank you, Fallen. Brilliant movie too. But it had that same like uncomfortable feeling watching it. Yeah. So anyway,
it's funny you say about the Pip-Boy stuff on the cartoon stuff on the screen. It's not that Disney's ever cutting any budgetary corners on these things, but it would be an easy way for them to save extra time and money and, I guess, casting in that, to have these scenarios played out in cartoon-esque rather than have them filmed
live
action and then have it on a screen. And
well, no, you do have the main kind of character that the TVA has is Miss Minutes, who's this clock face, like very 50s-esque, like Steamboat Willie Disney animation clock. And there was one scene where it's a hologram on the desk. And I was reading an interview that they did, and the director was like, yeah, we had this lamp that stood in place and we could bounce it around so that you actually see the like reflective light from the hologram like bouncing around like the walls of the cubicle of this desk.
Smart.
So,
yeah,
I can guarantee
very cool thing.
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say this series is very much setting up the next Ant-Man film, the Doctor Strange film. It's definitely they're going down the time and multiverse thing pretty hardcore in this series. And it's definitely going to play out into setting up things that you'll see in the big blockbusters coming up.
But that's excellent. I mean, they're now separating the first, I can't call it phases, the first chunk of up to Endgame was all very earthbound that went slightly cosmic after that, and now they've made the very, very wise decision to take not just retread the same ground again with different characters and take a different path to make it interesting and make people like us go, well, it's not just the same shit. I'll wait for this on DVD. I've seen it before. This is just another origin story in the same vein, blah, 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 blah. No, this is something different. Let's go and explore this. It's got some old characters. It's got some some new characters, and it's exploring a multiverse, something interesting and different.
And a lot of the origin stories are now being delivered over a 6 or 8 part miniseries on TV, so you're not waiting for anything to come out on DVD. It's straight to TV anyway. But I like the way that it's being constructed out or being expanded out the MCU. We had the cosmic threat of Thanos, and that kind of introduced those extragalactic entities. But he's fundamentally not a god. He's an alien, and we know that in the comics, in the expanded, in the MCU universe comics, the ultimate threats are always cosmological deities, essentially gods. And we've already been introduced to the concept because I was mining inside the dead head carcass of a god in the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
A celestial. But, I mean, essentially a celestial is a, intragalactic or intergalactic deity, god entity-ish. But I think, I think that the writers are smart enough. What are you smiling at, Tom?
I just like the ish. Like,
But the writers are smart enough to know that they can't keep just going bigger. The threat just can't get bigger and bigger and bigger. And also, whilst they do have these ultimate threats that are, cosmic entities that are the ultimate threats in a lot of the comic arcs as well, they can't just keep expanding indefinitely in the movies. So if you look at Shang-Chi, and it's a perfect segue into the trailer that just dropped, Shang-Chi is still set on Earth, and it explores a completely different realm of magic and history and kind of that Chinese, I'm assuming it's Chinese mythology. I'm almost certain it is. I'd feel bad if it wasn't.
Well, originally the rings were, they're not rings in this for some reason. They've made them armbands. But they were alien in nature, and they were found by the Mandarin.
Sorry, I'm watching the trailer without sound, so...
Why don't you mute your audio for a sec on your phone and watch the audio?
It's a different set of fucking headphones.
Okay, all right. And Alexa's just randomly activated itself behind me when I started the Velcro for my next beer. But I think it's smart, and I am just grabbing another bevy. I think it's smart that they are choosing to do movies, continuing to do movies and explore characters that are earthbound. Because if they just focused on the ever-expanding, bigger and badder Big Bad, after Thanos, you'd go to something more galactic. They'd run out of steam real quick.
Really good.
Yeah. It almost reminded me of Mortal Kombat, which...
It looks that slightly like that the new G.I. Joe Snake Eyes Origins as well. Just sort of how the trailer's filmed, but much, much better special effects.
Slightly bigger budget for Marvel than G.I. Joe at the moment.
Yeah, this looks excellent. Excellent.
Wait till Dan finishes at the end and get your thoughts on the trailer. But yeah, I just like the fact that they're now exploring the multiverse. They're exploring time and self-directive versus preordained destiny, which is an ancient philosophical debate, really. Are we really in control of our own destiny, or is fate decided already? We've been playing those video games.
Every first year philosophy student has to write an essay on that, I'm pretty sure, at uni.
Self-determination versus destiny, yeah. It's a cool philosophical debate. So they're doing that. They're doing multiverse theory, but they're also doing movies that are just set on Earth. They're doing another Spider-Man movie that's just going to be set on Earth, and they're doing the new Venom. They're doing Venom Carnage, which is on Earth with aliens, so it's kind of a crossover into space as a concept, but not in practice. And then you've got the multiverse theory, which is ultimately going to have to be set partially in space, I would assume. So it's cool. They're not doing the same thing. It's still we're 20 something movies in, or is it 30?
Yeah, but Venom Carnage isn't part of Marvel. It's the Sony side.
It's the Sony Marvel license, the IP. I get that, but
And so is Morbius.
But they've been smart in making sure that it doesn't directly contravene anything that's being said in the MCU. And so at some point in the future, we could see another buyout of the IP, or the IP licensing expires and it gets folded back into the MCU. And they're doing it in a smart way to make sure that that's not excluded.
Yeah.
Also, the Cashmere Hazy IPA from Wayward was fantastic. But I've got to say, the Mountain Culture Status Quo is also fucking great.
Status Quo is a very, very good beer.
For Mountain Culture as well.
Mm. The Frenchies Cashmere Cool Kids Hazy IPA series. Can we see that? It's good. It's good. It does showcase the hops nicely, or that hop nicely. But I would dare say the Wayward one. I've had the Wayward one before.
Well, I'll get you guys to send me the just a picture of the cans and the details if you could. Tom's gone Blair Witch Project on us. I'm assuming he's
I went to pick up my next beer. It's the Deeds Laurel Creek Fruited Sour Dipper.
Nice.
Dipper. Yeah, you'll have to tell us about that when you've tried it.
With lime and mandarin. Bloody treat myself.
Well, speaking of treats, I do have a beer. Next time we meet in person in a couple of weeks' time, I have saved those two Moondog Game of Thrones limited releases, and I have to admit to having already tried one of the two, and it blew my fucking mind. So I've made a point of keeping both the one I've already tried.
Moondog. Yep. I've had the stout. I can't remember which one I had, but we spoke about it when you tried it. We had the stout. Louise went up and grabbed us a couple of stouts one night, and that was one of them. And excellent. Just that fucking Moondog, man. I love Moondog. Been in the industry 11 years, and I can still fanboy over a brewery. So makes me happy.
They did put up a post today, Dan, announcing the fresh Black Forest is out.
Oh, lovely.
Nice. I'll have to order some of that online, I think.
The can label is lined up on this beer as well. Deeds has done a good job.
Well, staying on the Marvel side of things, I think why not? I don't want to say whip a dead horse, because Marvel's most definitely not a dead horse. Did you guys see the Guardians of the Galaxy gameplay?
I did.
Yeah.
Take a photo for Pete.
Don't do it now, you dope. Everything is fucking fun.
Don't yell at me. I can do what I want. I'm in my house. I'm locked down, Peter. No rules anymore.
Yeah, I did. I think it's interesting that the character modelling and outfits or costumes are a lot closer to the original comics. But I don't know if that's a great idea, because the comics were very bottom shelf comics before the movies were out.
No, falsehoods.
Sorry, my phone is going nuts at the moment. If you see me keep reaching towards the camera, it's because I've got about 10 people saying what's going on with the lockdown and work and everything, and it's dinging away. I probably should put my phone in. I'm going to put my phone in Do Not Disturb mode for a minute. There we go.
Okay. I'm going to let's finish this conversation about the Guardians of the Galaxy video game, and then we might take a 5-minute break so you can go and deal with that.
Yep, we've lost Tom.
No, Tom's here.
KFA.
These Guardians of the Galaxy comics are some of the best fucking comics I own, and they were written well before the MCU came out.
Sure. When did you buy them?
I can't remember.
Before or after the movie was announced?
Well before. I was reading Guardians of the Galaxy well before the movie was announced. That's why I was so excited when they started making the movie.
You know that, in terms of general popularity, I'm not questioning whether or not they're good, because I've never read them. But certainly when they first announced the movie, everyone was like, "Who the fuck are the Guardians?" I know I said that, and you go and do some research, and they were kind of obscure They weren't hugely popular. They didn't compete with for the limelight with their major characters, and there are a shit ton of major characters in the MCU. So
yeah,
the actual gameplay looks cool. It looks consistent. Looks consistent with the movies.
As I think the only person here who's played the Square Enix Avengers game, I am walking into this very tentatively because
it's the same people.
Looks like they've done the same. It looks, because that game, by the end of it, really fucking burnt me. In terms of you buy a superhero or a hero game because you want to play like a hero. You want to be able to do the cool things and bounce the shield off.
But you can't do that until right at the end of the game.
Right at the end of the game, and then also the enemies, they're just sponges for damage. They're just absolute bullet sponges. And that's what I saw in the trailer, and I was like, oh, I'm still going to get it, but I'll be like, don't burn me again, please, Square Enix.
I very much got that bullet sponge feel for it. The health bars, as much as they looked like they were pounding away at the enemies, but having not played that game, and I'm not going to touch the Avengers one, this piqued my interest in it. I guess if they take on some of the criticism, and this was early gameplay stuff as well, if they take on some of the comments and criticism, and that's been a comment that I've heard a lot, is just don't do that again. If they take that and make I got a feel for it that it could have been something sort of Batman Arkham-esque with people there with you, like the co-op stuff you did with Nightwing and Robin in Batman Arkham, where that was a little bit more rudimentary, where you could just do a double team takedown and then you'd switch to the other character. This one seems to be you call on the other character's powers and work from there just as Star-Lord. If they work that mechanic really well and integrate it well and make that combat fun and not just load up health bars on enemies, it looks like it could be good, fun and interesting. And as long as, once again, you've got to take all those E3 trailers like that with a grain of salt. It's a heavily voice-acted, story-heavy part of the game, but what's the filler in between? Are you doing grindy
very
shit in between those? Yeah, in between those really good story beat moments, which that showed a really fun story beat. That was interesting and fun to watch. The voice acting was really good. What you saw of the combat looks like fun and looked engaging and entertaining, even the quips that they all threw at each other throughout the combat, and then you'd roll into another story beat from there on out. But if that's the initial startup mission and then you're just floating around and you get some offhand comment from each character every 15 or 20 minutes, that's going to be a real downer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at the same time, I imagine it would be difficult to maintain that level of energy in background interactions in a game while you're actually trying to play through a story too. So it's going to be interesting to see how they balance it, because I think it is a fine line. Yeah, exactly.
But if they're gonna embark on a team story, they need to lean into the team. You don't want to be a mute characters. You don't want to be a group of five walking around.
Yeah,
walking around, and everybody's mute until you hit a certain beat in the level that you're walking through.
Yeah. Another milestone-driven game. Yeah, I tend to agree. It's going to be interesting to see how that game develops. It's one of the... I wrote down when I was watching the Square Enix E3 live stream, so that was one of 4 and 5 that I watched. I watched Ubisoft, Xbox, Bethesda, Square Enix, Gearbox, and there was one more that I inadvertently... And Gearbox wasn't actually a live stream of video game footage. It was the commentators. It's some sort of esports company, I think, like an IGN.
Oh, I heard about that,
So I skipped that, and I can't remember the 5th one. But the only comment I made through the whole Square Enix live stream was Guardians of the Galaxy comic true look. Not sure how I feel about it yet. I think that sums it up for me.
Well, yeah, it looks like they're...
Go, Tom.
I was just saying the Eidos Montreal, who are the team behind it, they're also the guys. Yeah. I think they're leaning pretty heavily on their Deus Ex previous successes. So
kind of exactly the same thing I was about to say. I mean, Square Enix has been the publisher behind some very, very good games, and the Deus Ex, the first one was excellent. The second one was good, but very short. In comparison, nowhere near as in depth as the first one. But the actual concepts behind those Deus Ex and the way that it's expressed is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's excellent if they can bring that quality through. It'd be great.
The last one I played was, it's a weird memory, to be honest. It's a weird memory association. I borrowed a copy of Deus Ex Human Revolution, which was a PC game, off a person that I worked with who had a very sad ending. And I haven't thought about him for a long time because it was probably 15 years ago now that he passed away. But I borrowed this game and we weren't even really friends. We interacted on a regular basis for work over the space of like a year, and we'd worked in the same company for almost a decade overall, but I only really spoke to him for 12 months. Borrowed this game, I got reassigned, and for the next 6 to 12 months, he was chasing me up to give his game back before I finally returned it. And then I found out just after I left the company that he'd, because he was always a really weird dude, and one of those guys that struggles to fit into society, but he finally found a girl, gotten engaged, went to an Eastern Bloc country. It wasn't Russia, it wasn't Ukraine, but it was kind of in that region to get married, and had a stomachache when he left Sydney, saw a doctor, no problems, got to there, had his wedding, and then the day after his wedding, for the first day of his honeymoon, he fell ill, went to a doctor, and they found out that they'd skipped the diagnosis and he had like stage 3 or stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he died like a day later. So he was married for two days. And so I cannot talk about Deus Ex without remembering that dude who passed away. So, brilliant game.
Happy memories.
Yeah, very, very dark. Sorry. So anyway, I've embarrassed myself. I've gone bright red. It's a problem with video. That's a weird just memory association game. So Deus Ex Human Revolution was 2011 for PS3.
Yes, so that
must have been PS3 I borrowed it off.
Yeah, so that made its way through.
Go, Tom.
Dead air.
No. I was being stupid. I was making fun.
What were you saying there?
It's a good game. It is. That's what I meant by happy memories. Play it again and have happy memories of playing the game, because it is a very, very good game. It's very in depth. It's a little aged now, and the world wasn't quite as vibrant as what it probably could have been at the time. But it's a very, very good game. So I mean, yeah, he did a good job in recommending and lending it to you.
So I was going to ask, is this the second or the first or the third game in the series?
So, well, I think there was a couple of. This was the kind of the soft reboot for it. Was Human Revolution, and then Mankind Divided was the second. Was the second one by that same studio.
This is the advantage of the only advantage really of doing this over a video conference rather than in person. So there was Deus Ex Invisible War, and then, as you say, the reboot, which was Human Revolution rather, and then apparently there was the Deus Ex The Fall, which is
mobile game.
Yeah, Android and Windows versions were released in 2014, but it was an iOS game. And then Mankind Divided, which is the major kind of follow-up for PS4.
I think
The Fall. Yeah. So you're right, though. It looks like a mobile game that was ported to PC by the look of it.
Oh, okay.
Happens 6-month period when Human Revolution protagonist Adam Jensen is recovering from an attack. Anyway, I think we should take a break just quickly to kind of reset, and it means I don't have to download humongous video files from the internet. And we're back.
We're not recording.
Sweet. Virtual timeout? Well, yeah, I mean, we just had a 10-minute conversation about the background behind the show. I don't think that's something in the front page.
So I want to bring something up to you guys beer-wise, obviously. So this is Honey Rider Brewing. It's an easy ale. He calls it an easy ale. It's a pale ale. So Honey Rider is a very small bar in the Neutral Bay, just on Military Road. In full disclosure, we brew this for Phil at Honey Rider. He doesn't have a commercial brewery. He has a very small, I think it's a 200-litre kit at Honey Rider itself, where he just does some small hazy and seasonal stuff there. This recipe that he did several years ago, he's had it contract brewed around the place. So we've been contract brewing it now. This is like maybe the third or fourth batch. We started doing it, ironically, at the end of lockdown last year, just as it was about to reopen again. This, at the moment, is one of my favourite ales. And it's probably one of my brew team's favourite ales at the moment. And because it stands itself apart from a lot of the other... Well, okay, so it's called an easy ale. It's a pale ale, but it's made with noble hops. So it's made with Hallertau Blanc as the main hop element in it, which is... I could be talking out of school this. I might have to look it up. Hallertau is a noble hop, so it's a German hop. So Hallertau Blanc is the dry hop in it. And it's got such a distinctly different hop character to it compared to all the Australian hopped pale ales or the American hop pale ales, that it's such a wonderful palate cleanser in between, not just a palate cleanser, it's a wonderful beer on its own, but in between the hazies and the IPAs and all those big American hops that can so often, as we all know, blend too much together. This is such a clean and distinctive, very, very distinctive difference between the American hop and the Hallertau Blanc that we, or Blanc, however you want to say it. I don't know whether Blanc is too Australian or whether Blanc is too wanky.
I think it's Blanc
to say. Yeah,
I think it's Blanc.
So
you don't walk in and ask for a Chardonnay, mate. So you do pronounce it the way that it's designed to be pronounced. Can I have a Merlot? It's also, this is German. Hallertau is German, not French. So the pronunciation, I do have a German working for me, so I should ask him the actual pronunciation of it. But I'll bring some for you next time, and you'll be able to see the very distinct difference between an Australian pale ale, an American pale ale, and what this is. And it's so light, and he's always been very specific in using a German Pilsner malt for it. So rather than just a standard pale malt that you would use for an ale or an Australian pale ale or something nice and light, anything along those lines, he's very distinct on always wanting to use the slightly more expensive German Pilsner malt, which gives it, I'll pour a little bit of it. It gives it, it's going to be really hard to tell the colour difference on my my wonderful iPhone 6S phone. No, you might. It's super light. Yeah.
So it's barely got a hint of any of the slightly more orangey colours to it. So that's probably 3 or 4 actual EBC. And he called me one day and he goes, you do order this Pilsner malt for me and put it in the easy for them, don't you? You don't just use the cheaper stuff. And I'm like, no, Phil, we use the proper stuff. What's on your recipe? And I just wanted to really give a really shout out to Phil. Like and I told him the other day when I saw him, it's a wonderful recipe. It's a fantastic use of hop, and it's so distinctively different. So I really hope that it sort of picks up, and it really leans into the Australian summer palate. I think once all this fuckery stops and we get it back into a normal year with this in package, he's got it in his local BWS stores and that. So hopefully it really takes off for him, and people get paid for it.
I I think it goes to show, and certainly Moondog as a brand and their kind of ethos for what I've detected as their ethos for their beer releases, but certainly the flavour profiles that I had with the one Game of Thrones out of the two limited editions I've tried. I've got two in there, and they're very different, but they're similar. They came from a similar base. And what you're talking about, I think, goes to show that in order to stand out from the craft industry, you don't have to just one-up the next guy, because that's where we seem to be stuck at the moment, where we're on the, we started with some hazies, and now hazies have just taken off. Double dry hopped and double IPAs are massive at the moment, and everyone seems to be trying to get out there and say, I can do it better than everyone else. Look what I've done. And it's all fundamentally the same beer. There's different balances. There's different amounts of juiciness versus haziness versus the underlying base, but they're fundamentally all, iterations of the same theme, and it's not the only way to stand out from the crowd. So I think it's cool when people are doing something different, but doing it, executing it well. It's certainly worth calling them out.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean,
not that I can talk. I mean, I've had a hazy IPA from Wayward, a hazy IPA from Mountain Culture. I'm now drinking the Garage Project Hard Knocks hazy IPA, which is basically.
Ooh, he's on the haze train. Watch out, fucking haze boys!
It is a big beer too. It's 7.6%. 2.6 standard drinks in the can, which I'm about to consume by myself. Giant juicy fruit bowl of Simcoe Mosaic and Euconaut, layered in a blend of pellets, cryo, and aromatic incognito extract to deliver a huge hop hit, wrapped in a smooth velvet glove of malted golden promise barley, plump wheat, and creamy oats. It's got all the buzzwords, and it comes together quite well, but I wonder about the word extract, as to whether or not they're using, all natural ingredients, or if they're using the concentrates that you can buy from overseas these days.
No, there's a lot of stuff happening. So some of those words that you just threw around there's some of those, some of the extract is
like a concentrate from natural ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny now, because now we're running into areas where, like, beer in cans used to be a dirty word, because when beer cans were made of steel, you would get oxidization from the steel and everything, and then there was a real mind change that had to happen when the craft beer industry changed from bottles to cans over the last couple of years that we've obviously witnessed firsthand. And now there's this thing happening where we need this extract term, and don't get me wrong, I am 110% fucking guilty of this, because I've obviously been in the industry for a long time now. But extract was a dirty, dirty word. It was a CO2 extracted or a chemically extracted hop resin or extract. But now we're getting these wonderful extracts that can only fall into that category, that are providing an enormous amount of and they're naturally extracted hop extracts. So, like, condensing something through, in use of a cooking terms, condensing something by boiling it down. And I'll look more into this and find out how they do it.
So it's a concentrate that is chemically extracted from a natural ingredient, and therefore it's still natural. It's just at a higher concentration.
Take the chemically out of it.
Okay.
That's what I mean. This is where the mindset mindset needs to. It's a physical process, yeah. So my mindset needs to change, and our expressions and our thoughts towards these extract things now need to change, because we're getting these hop oils, these extracts, these concentrated versions, which are going from hop flowers to the hop pellets that we primarily use. Now we're going to cryo hop, which is a more condensed version of the hop pellets, and now we're moving to extracts, again in quotations, which are a more condensed version of the cryo. So they're completely taking the flavour oil elements that we want to use and to use for flavour expression. Those are becoming much more readily available in a good format. rather than tetrahops and chemical extracted things.
Yeah, so I think you're probably right in terms of the language in the beer industry needing to change a little bit, but it's really only about marketeering. If you look at the concept of distilling a liquid, you don't learn what distilling as a concept is in your physics class or your biology class. You learn it in your chemistry class. It is very much it is a physical process to vaporize liquid and then recondense it with wrapping it around cold water. But it is a chemical process, but it is absolutely a physical process that you learn in chemistry. So, what you're talking about in terms of chemically extracting hop resins, it is a physical process, but it's different
it's a chemistry process. It's not a chemical process.
Negative, that's right. So the negative connotation is as compared to synthetically reproducing molecules by a molecular biologist, where the resin is completely synthetic. There's no natural ingredients involved, which is the bad chemistry, or that's the negative connotation behind the word chemically extracting something.
Yeah, but I mean, you're kind of running two things in here there. So the tetrahop and everything that we sort of hate in the macro lagers and things like that, tetrahop is not a synthetic compound. It is still a hop compound, but it is a CO2 extracted. I don't know how it works, but it's a CO2 extracted, and in the early days, it was actually a chemically extracted compound from hop. It wasn't a synthetically made product.
Right.
So,
and yet we have seen completely synthetic compounds added to beers as flavourants, and we've had conversations 20 episodes ago, probably 2 seasons ago now, about some synthetic blueberry flavourants added to beer, and I get that. We haven't really talked about it in the concept of adding the hop flavour to a beer yet, and I'm sure it's been done before. But certainly the fruity flavours that we're getting in some beers, not all of them have any component that derives from the actual fruit that we start from. So there's concentrating citrus flavours versus creating citrus flavours from raw chemical compounds where there's no fruit involved.
And
those are two different halves.
A single hop. We haven't had a single beer that's had some sort of synthetic, other than maybe there hasn't been any synthetic hop flavors. No.
Oh, I'm going to stop you there. We had one that was specifically designed about that. Remember the One Drop Terminator beer?
Yeah, the One Drop. It was. I think they. They were all extracts in this whole conversation.
Yeah.
That was exactly where I was going. They're not synthetic flavors. They're extracts from.
Yeah,
I am looking this up
extracts
anyway.
from natural ingredients.
Yes.
There was I can't remember the name of the brewery. It is an Australian craft brewery that released 2 beers with the same flavour profiles, the same hop and malt base, the same recipe essentially. One used fruit extract as the flavourant, and one used organic chemistry to create a synthetic compound that mimicked the flavour. And they released them side by side, and they declared which was which. It wasn't kind of those blind tests, but it was a demonstration.
No, I do remember. Yeah.
It's a demonstration of the technology, and anyone who did year 11, year 12 chemistry knows that you can create banana-flavoured esters out of raw chemicals that have nothing to do with bananas. You never put a banana in a chem lab and still end up with banana flavors. So I think it's an interesting conversation, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the craft industry over the next 10 years, because we're making leaps and bounds at the moment in biochemistry and organic chemistry as a result of, ironically, the reason why we're sitting on a WebEx rather than meeting in person. And I don't think anyone could ever question that the technology that we take for granted every day in things like, our iPhones and the rest of it come from the need to invest in research into other areas. So, the iPhone chips came from military technology originally, and I think you'll find a lot of the stuff that ends up in food in 10, 15 years' time will be a derivative of what we're learning about medical research at the moment. It's kind of a rabbit hole that we're going down.
Yeah, definitely. So this is just looking at this the one drop one that we had, and this is talking about some of the it's the blurb from the side of the can that Tom read out when we had it. And it had exactly what I'm talking about, the CO2 extracted, propylene glycol extracted, which is the chemically extracted origin of the and distillation of the original hop oil compounds. Yeah. So that had both the CO2 extracted and the propylene glycol extracted, the hop oils in it.
Yeah, okay.
How the fuck did we even get onto this conversation?
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad. Tom's been quiet for a while now. I'm just going to round off the topic by saying
I was just letting you have your big rant about that, but I was just like, I don't know how we got here.
Yeah, but I mean, look, we're all nerds of a various bent, right? I'm a tech nerd, so this sort of stuff turns me on anyway, just raw technology.
I almost forgot I was on camera and was about to lick the drip off the side of the bottle. Didn't think it was a good look, so didn't do it in the end.
Hey, look, 25% of our listeners are female, Dan. You never know. That could boost to 50% if you start licking the sides of bottles. This Hard Knocks Hazy IPA is a great example of a hazy IPA. It's dank as fuck. It has a real dank flavour note straight through the middle of the palate, so it's not at all subtle. But it is still fundamentally a hazy IPA, so you get all those kind of juicy, hazy notes. Unfortunately, I haven't poured it in a glass, and I'm not game enough to drop off camera for 5 minutes to get a glass. But it's a bloody good beer.
I think I've got one. I can't remember if I've had it yet.
It's strong though. I'm worried that these remote episodes, because I'm drinking all the way through rather than just the 1/3 of a shared can times 4 over an episode, we're going to end up smashed by the end of every episode. But
that might explain your rant about hop extracts and whatever will just happen.
Oh no, it's actually a segue into a random topic I'm going to bring up in a sec. Bud,
okay. Well, give me 2 seconds. This is I don't know whether you can read what this is. It's not in English, so I'm not going to even try and pronounce it. They're a Belgian brewery. Thankfully, the description on the back of the bottle is in English. It is Udenbring. Oak leaf is created by adding the leaves of the oak tree to the beer that is already aged in oak barrels for at least 1 year. It's beautiful. Like it's 6%. It's a sort of a dark coppery amber color.
I know Bruin's it's a Belgian brown ale.
Oh, is that what it actually means? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, when Emma was she brought me some back from Germany, and one of them had it was like it was their Ode Bruin, but it was essentially it's like an old Belgian brown ale, like an aged Belgian brown ale, and they're great. They're so cool.
It's fucking gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. This was in the quorum at work when I went in there today, so I stole it. So sorry to any of my brewers that are listening to this that you're not going to get to try this as I drink.
I am going to go get a glass just so I can pour out these beers since everyone's describing colours. Okay. The podcast.
We'll discuss where you go. Or are you taking me?
I'm still going on my sour dipper because it's also 8%, and it's a cross-continental collaboration actually between Deeds and Mountains Walking Brewing in Bozeman, Montana.
Cool.
So, there you go. Apparently the head brewer bumped into the head brewer from Deeds, Justin Corbett, was wandering around a craft beer conference in Washington, D.C. when he saw a familiar face. Lewis McAllister was a friend from high school in West Virginia, born and raised, and he too had followed the call of fermentation. And they've collabed on this beer. It's big, but it's not like smash your face sour. Sour dippers are always, I love them. I think they're great.
Interesting
styles.
Yeah, but it's an interesting style. because you still get you tend to still
heaps of lime.
Still get the hops notes, the fruit notes from the traditional double IPA, and then you get the kind of the mouth puckering sourness. So it can be an interesting style to balanced.
Yeah, this isn't quite mouth puckeringly sour, but it's definitely like a hop punch to your face. Hops they used are Citra, Eclipse, and Motueka. The additions of lactose, mandarin, and lime. There you go. Fun.
Cool. Just on some flavour descriptions on this one as well. This is, as you were saying, it's a brown ale, but it's quite tart. It's a wild fermented as well. It's funny. It says woody astringency on the bottle because you do get a little bit of that from the barrel and probably the oak leaves that got added to it. But it's got a beautiful, almost sour red wine character to it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
I do have to say it is absolutely. I'm pretty sure this came from Beer Cartel. So if you guys are
we're all locked down, mate.
Yeah. If you happen to be doing a Beer Cartel order online or see it anywhere, I highly, highly recommend that because it's only 6% and it's absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Oh, good.
Yeah, cool. You can. I'm amazed at the color of this. I've not seen the color, and I think the color comes out quite well in the video. It is hazy as shit. So the haze proteins, and it's almost a grey amber. So that's quite impressive. You guys are going to have to send me tasting notes so we can actually review these beers after the podcast. I wanted to segue just quickly because we will get back into core topics, but just on the technology things, have either of you guys read the articles about the unidentified UAPs report coming out of US Congress? I think it was announced today or yesterday.
I have not. I saw a thing about it. IGN had a thing; they were going through it, but I have not gone down that rabbit hole. Hey, I've got 2 weeks off, so fucking let's turn it up.
Well, look, I've got to say, having been following it, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know a few guys who follow those rabbit holes pretty deeply, and they're interesting people to talk to in small doses. But I definitely don't finish.
How much red wine do you have in your house right now, Peter?
How much what? Sorry?
How much red twine so you can circle and pull the strings?
I need a raw whitewashed wall, gyprock wall with photos fucking imported to the wall. Those guys have obviously not discovered cork. They just pin photos to the wall before but they have. The U.S. military and the U.S. government has now taken unidentified flying objects seriously enough to produce a fucking report, and they've had a task force on it now for 3 years or 4 years, and have now released a report to Congress. And whilst it's predictably, what's the word I'm looking for? There aren't any specific outcomes from the report. The fact that there aren't
vague.
But the fact that there aren't specific outcomes, if it was known technology, if it was a known, if it was a known actor from another country, they would call it out. We believe this to be technology from China or Russia that is advanced, but within the realms of our understanding of the physics of the universe. But some of the specifics have now released in formal reports released to the U.S. Congress, amount to. We don't have an ability to explain how these objects move the way that we observe them to move and have filmed them moving the way that they moved. On infrared, on electro-optics, on the most advanced radar technology they've got, these objects have accelerated in unpredictable ways that we cannot reproduce with current advanced military-level designs on drones. So whatever they are, they're unexplainable. And I think that's fucking cool. And the reality is, if we were being observed by aliens, it's not like they would likely announce their presence. It's not like they have to fucking come down and explain themselves to us. And I think whilst most people like the comfort of being able to laugh off that idea, I think it's almost undeniable that there's at least a decent chance that that's exactly what those are. At least some of them.
So you said it was a task force that had gone through and announced this thing?
It's a task force that reviewed hundreds of reports from existing and retired US military personnel and private personnel, and reviewed footage, and then narrowed it down to, I think, 26 encounters of 18 different objects.
And you would probably say that this task force is made up of top men?
Where are you going from?
Come on, that was good.
Yeah, no. Well, I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to.
No, I'm going to read it.
To have serious people, like deadly serious people, describe an object that has no control surfaces, no wings, has a radar return, and is therefore a physical object, hover above the ocean and then travel above Mach 3. So they detected some of these objects traveling from zero, velocity to supersonic in a space of time that our current UAV technology, and in fact our FA-18s and F-22s can't match. So, whatever it is, it's beyond the realms of projecting our current technology trajectory. So I think it's cool.
I think it's extremely interesting, and I would, I'll very much. We've been hearing about this for a little while. Obviously, listen to Joe Rogan's podcast quite often, and he's had the actual flight officers on there talking about it, and he's talked about it for a while. He's a bit of a UFO nut, but with the coming of all this information being released from, once again, quotation marks, creditable sources, and obviously the pilots very much are creditable sources. It's interesting. We'll see what comes of it, and it's a very interesting time to be alive in, other than the worldwide fucking pandemic.
Yeah, true.
So have you read the full report, Pete?
Yeah. I haven't read the I haven't read the full report that's been released to the American public from Congress. No, I've read an 8-page news article that details what's in the report and kind of some interviews with the actual pilots and that sort of stuff. So I haven't finished kind of following that little rabbit hole. But I think it's interesting that we live in an era where the idea of believing in UFOs visiting Earth is no longer something that leads to immediate ridicule and dismissal, because we essentially have a serious US government task force that spent over $100 million in investigating it.
Yeah, it's proof.
And after 5 years, they've come back and they haven't said, no, it's all bullshit. And you know that after spending $100 million, if it had been bullshit, they would have called it out as bullshit. Yeah, Dan's gone to take a look.
Hi, Dan. No, I'm hoping and praying that, fuck, how good would it be if just a spaceship just landed on your fucking street and you got to go out and be like, holy shit, it's a fucking spaceship.
I think we've seen enough movies that even the benevolent aliens, in movies it's still not a great experience for the human population. It's a fucking scary one. I think it would be cool to find out that they were real in a way that meant that we weren't annihilated. Absolutely. Landing in the neighborhood, not so much.
I'd be excited. I'd love it. I'd go out and they'd be like, eat your face. And I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. You're an alien.
Like Mars
what a way to go.
Style. Yeah, we come in peace. Just before, ray gunning people. That was such a fucking great movie too, because you knew from the very beginning just the way that they were designed and rendered on screen. They were going to go bad. I don't think I've watched it. I think I've watched it twice when it first came out, and I've never seen it since. I really need to go back and watch that film.
I'm hoping 2 weeks to do it, so let's go.
Yeah, that's
Put it on.
That's it. By the way, Dan,
have you watched Mars Attacks recently?
I love Mars Attacks. It's fucking awesome. Yeah,
I was just going to say,
it's well above. It's well up there in one of my favorite movies. It's such a well thought out, just fucking off the wall and not pulling any punches. It was just fucking balls to the wall the whole time, and just having fun and taking piss and well made, and it's just great. I love it.
Yeah, it is a really good movie. I was just saying to Tom while you were taking a leak that it's a movie I've seen twice when it first came out and I haven't seen since. And I think it's about time, given what we just finished discussing, to go back and watch it. Tom was saying how cool would it be if, aliens just popped up and landed in your neighborhood. And I'm like, not so sure that'd be cool. I think if it was, parked in orbit, then, and,
on my street, land on my street, crush the neighbor's car. It's fucking hilarious.
That fuckwit who starts his car at 6 o'clock in the morning and revs the shit out of his piece of shit V8 engine.
No. I've got a weird guy on my street, and I know he won't listen to this, so it's fine. I can rag on him all I want. But we refer to him as the bin guy. So I live on a little, it's basically a giant U. I live on a one-way street, and it's quite narrow footpaths. It's parking either side, but it's then just one lane of traffic.
Very similar to my street, right? That's just a big U.
Yeah. Super tiny. You can whenever there's a moving truck coming down, everyone's just fantastic. There goes half the side mirrors, of all the cars parked along the
Yeah.
But put the bins out every Tuesday, and every Wednesday I have to get up for cellar work. So I either walk Jasper or things. And without fail, as soon as the bin guys have come past at 7:30, this dude leaves his house. He lives 3 doors up from us, and he starts putting everyone's bins back, in their house. And I was like, okay, friendly neighbor, maybe, weird. But then I've caught him. He walks down and checks people's bins, on bin night, and then comes out with all his shit and puts it in other people's bins. And he's a gardening nut. So he's always waiting for. No, he's a gardening nut. So every time there's grass bin week, he's always just who hasn't used their grass bin? And I've seen him go to someone's house. They haven't put their grass bin out, so he just takes their bin off their front of their, walks up to his house, fills it with whatever shit he's got that week, and then puts it back. And I'm just you're a weird dude. You're a weird dude, man.
Who's not been guilty of having a quick hunt around their immediate neighbours looking for some empty bin space because you've overfilled yours? I know I've done that before. I don't think that's that weird.
First nicest.
Sorry,
definitely my dad made me do that. So go check the neighbours.
Asking them first is nice.
Don't do that. Don't talk to neighbours.
Well, I happen to be in contact with our strata. Our strata treasurer happens to be the person, on the owners' council, happens to be the person whose master bedroom is directly underneath my living room. So that's who sends me SMSs at 9 o'clock saying, "Can you please turn your fucking Atmos system down?" And it's at 9 o'clock, man. If you're going to bed that early. Anyway, she's if you've ever got any spare rubbish, these 3 apartments don't have anyone in them at the moment. This guy's on holidays, so you can use his. She keeps a tight list of who's who and who's where in this strata. Yeah, a little bit, but I at least know where to put the rubbish.
That's true.
Anyway,
I'm about to crack my silly beer.
Why don't you, before you do that, why don't we take a quick break, because we've been on for almost 40 minutes, and the topics of conversation have kind of digressed, and we'll get back to something specific to pixels and pints when we come back. So we'll just take 5 minutes. And we're back.
I mean, I look like a fucking L'Oreal ad here, so I'm fine.
Well, I actually had to go and get the hat, Tom, because it was all over the shop before you got on there.
And we're talking about hairstyles. So I'm somewhere between Justin Bieber and what's his name? Killian?
The dude from Fifth Element.
Fifth Element, yeah, that's where I was going. Gary Oldman. You just need the plastic head shield.
Yeah,
the plastic skull cap.
There's your Halloween costume for this year.
Yeah.
Get that big fucking gun. That'd be sick.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a cool gun. Let's talk video games. So unless someone else has a topic they want to talk about.
Can I introduce my beer quickly?
Yeah, please introduce your weird beer.
So this is from Big Shed Brewing down in South Australia. I think it was their Gabs beer. I didn't go. It's the Violet NoRegard's blueberry milkshake beer, which apparently contains edible glitter. It's a bit shiny. Oh yeah, she blew.
Oh Jesus!
And yes, that's my PlayStation trophy glass.
Oh.
No, I can see the glitter in it. Yeah, that's going to be a weird poop.
Yeah. Don't eat anything with sesame seeds because they're going to be blue.
Oh yeah. So I poured it and the head dissipated almost instantly. So I imagine there must be either like a fuck ton of blueberries in it to like affect that.
What style of beer it is? What style of beer is it?
It's meant to be a milkshake IPA. So
so it's a fruit. It's a fruit milkshake IPA with blueberries.
Yeah. And
what's the percentage?
I mean, not
you guys
small.
are even worse from it.
8%.
8%. You can give me some tasting notes after the show, mate. You're going to have to memorise that shit.
Alcoholic.
Well, I'm currently drinking another garage project beer, Give You All My Love.
Yeah, that was a great beer. I had that the other week.
It's a cool can. It's almost a Virgo. There's two twins of unknown gender with multiple hands hugging each other with what looks like pies or smiley faces with three eyes on their head. Very strange. I can't get the camera to focus. A smooth blend of the finest Maris Offa malted barley and rolled oats, lovingly hopped with Simcoe, which seems to be the theme of my day, Citro Galaxy and Sabro to create a swirling haze of tropical fruits with lifted citrus and just a hint of sweet coconut. 6.7%. Couldn't tell you what style it is. It looks like a hazy. It's definitely a hazy. Just looking at the glass, look at that.
Yeah. I had that. I think I had that not last week, the week before. It's very good beer.
And it has a lot of residual sugar in it. It's there's a lot of lactose in that. It's quite good. Let's talk video games. So did either of you guys watch any of the E3 footage beyond the Guardians of the Galaxy gameplay?
Yeah, I watched most of it.
Really? I watched. I think I read a few articles on it, but I didn't really invest in E3 this year. Like, none of the companies going up, like with the whole Xbox and Bethesda thing, I was just like, well, fuck, there's no real point.
Didn't I call it? That the merge between Bethesda and Xbox or Microsoft would result in a shit ton of awesome titles being Xbox exclusive. And that's the theme that I took away from the Xbox Bethesda live. Dan, you watched them all or you watched most of them?
Most of it. Rattle off what you've seen and I'll tell you whether it came onto my radar or not.
Okay. I watched Ubisoft's live stream, so it was a couple of hours.
I didn't bother with the actual shows this year because it was just fluff in between.
I skipped.
In between what?
I said it's just fluff in between trailers. Just do a highlight reel.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't even good trailers. I mean, there was so much like just CG trailers, and I love watching the footage. Yeah, so I love watching the conferences if there's going to be someone on stage talking about a game while someone. I remember a couple of years ago, it might have even been the God of War PS4 one where someone was talking about it while somebody was off screen playing it, and the PS4 crashed.
Yeah.
And they had to reboot.
Yeah, that was God of War. Yeah,
it was God of War. I like that stuff. Like that's the stuff I want to see, and that's what I'll watch the conferences for. So if I catch wind that's going to be in the conference, because I want to hear what those little bits and pieces that they've got to say about the game as someone's playing it. They go, okay, well, this is the new mechanic that we've designed for this game, blah blah blah. But pre-rendered trailers and alpha footage, like I'll just watch those as they pop up on YouTube. I'll seek them out, but I won't sit there and watch a 2-hour conference with crap in between.
Practically everything in E3 was pre-rendered.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit hard this year because it was all remote. Like they didn't have a.
Yeah, but that's not the same as gameplay footage.
Yeah,
you could have remote shows and remote live streams. And I actually thought, funnily enough, after watching it all, and I'm pissed off at Microsoft at the moment for buying Bethesda and releasing a bunch of Xbox only and PC games, but their live stream was probably constructed better than anyone else's, and it's likely to be because of the heritage of the Microsoft company who've been doing remote presentations to their 15,000 employees for decades. It's not new concept to them, but their set presentation, the stage that they were on, the quality of their video was better than anyone else's by a country mile. They also seem to be one of the only ones that actually had developers talking for a decent chunk of their live streams, whereas a lot of the rest of them were just, hey, and look at this trailer, and hey, look at this trailer, and it cut back to the presenter, and it would just be to introduce the next trailer. So at least they had some interesting discourse. Any games jump out at you though, Dan?
Not really. I mean, the one I really wanted to see a little bit of was Starfield, but it was a pre-rendered. But other than that, not really anything. There was maybe some. Let me look up a list, but
what pisses me off about Starfield? It is the first. It's the first of my annoying comments around Bethesda Xbox. It is a new IP, and it is Xbox only, or it's Xbox and PC only rather.
See, I've got a good PC now, so it doesn't bother me.
So do I, but I want to be able to play video games on the couch. Yeah, Stalker looked. I never played Stalker, so this is Stalker 2, the follow-up. That looked. I never really got into the whole Chernobyl first-person shooter concept.
Stalker was.
Did you see the?
Amazing.
No, you go, Dan.
Yeah. Stalker was amazing for the time. It was. I think it's one of those quiet achievers in what we now regard as an open world game. I mean, it was one of the first ones that was bringing in dynamic world events. So you would go out into the open world, and the anomalies that would happen in the open world were random. The game was entirely full of bugs, so it was very rare that this game, like these anomalies, would go off without a hit.
Work the way they were designed to.
Well, but the thing is, because of how the setting that it was laid out in and how these anomalies were meant to happen, if there was a weird glitch in the way it presented itself in the game, you never really you kind of went, oh, was it meant to do that, or was that actually the code glitching, or was that something that was planned?
Yeah,
but it was like the game, and I played it in its very early stage. Like there was obviously no early release in those days. It was the full game, and you actually had to physically go to the site to get a patch if you wanted to get a patch, if you could get a patch for it, kind of thing. Sometimes the patches came on the CD on the front of PC Gamer. That's where the patch for the game would come from.
I remember those days.
Exactly, and this was the original Stalker. But Stalker was such a fantastic concept, and it so many people wouldn't realise that it has such an influence on how we view open world games these days. It was the first to introduce these random events and things that were just coded to happen in the world, and were happening whether you were there or not. It didn't fucking matter. They were happening in the open world, and it was a fantastic leap in what we would expect for a game, which is they've got, for me, and I know for a lot of the people that played Stalker and it was very close to their heart. It's funny because Stalker 2 is called Heart of Chernobyl. It's one of those games that we think very, very fondly of that probably wasn't a very good game when we played, but is viewed as an excellent game. Like it just
the grandfather of current games.
Yeah, I mean, but like the silent grandfather, like I would almost guarantee there's a lot of gamers these days that don't even know what fucking Stalker is.
Yeah, fair enough. And look, I never played the game. I was never, so I kind of fall into the category you've just described. So my question to you is, were these open world anomalies, were they procedurally generated, or were they just random encounters that were predetermined in a database?
No, the actual radium. So I think the radiation zones were predetermined, but the actual anomaly. So it was always said, like, one of the big things that they talked about when the game was going to be released, that there would be random blow-offs from the center. So you would see, like, the wildlife and the animals start to run in the opposite direction of the blow off from the nuclear power plant, and then it was always suggested that you would seek shelter from there. And those things did happen randomly. There was scripted story ones as well, but the biggest things that were random that would kill you quite quickly were these weird distorted balls of radiation. Almost sort of like magical orbs out in the field. And you would go out to them. If they killed you and you went back and tried to investigate it again, it wouldn't be there. So it was 100% procedural in those days when that code would have been incredibly hard to write.
Yeah, and now you've got No Man's Sky, which is a game that is 100% procedurally generated. It's interesting. Anything else kind of stand out for you in what you've seen from the E3 footage? I've got quite a list, actually. I mean, it's probably only 5 or 6 games, but...
Yeah, there was only 5 or 6. So another one on that side of it too is a game called Atomic Heart. We saw
That's what I was about to ask you about.
Yeah.
The weird Russian fallout?
Of it. Yeah. So we saw the first inklings of it about 2 or 3 years ago at E3. And it looked super interesting, and everybody was skeptical. It looks too good to be true. And then over the years, we've got little bits and pieces of 5-10 minute sort of gameplay trailers of it, and it just gradually looks better. It looks like a Russian BioShock. And it's probably, along with Stalker, just for nostalgia value, it's well up on my top 2 or 3 is Atomic Heart. I think it looks fantastic, super interesting. I won't play it.
It looks like a Russian Fallout.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just looking at screenshots on my other screen.
Oh, Russia Fallout. Fallout as in Fallout the game.
Yeah.
That's a bit darker though. Like, Fallout was quite comical. This doesn't look very comical at all. This looks like every goddamn thing in the world is there to kill you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Cool.
I had a disappointment from E3 in that I was waiting for them to announce a Switch Pro so they would finally invest in one.
Yeah.
But nothing.
And one of the things that were missing for me, so there was no Switch Pro, which, has been rumoured enough that you can almost guarantee there's one in development, right? It's just they didn't make the official announcement. There was literally zero mention of VR. And I don't just mean the new PSVR 2 for PS5. I mean, there was no mention of VR as a concept. There were no VR games. There was no Vive games. There was no PC games for the VR, the Oculus series. There was just no virtual reality whatsoever.
Yeah.
So to me, that was missing. Before I get into my shopping list of things, was there anything else that anyone picked up from E3? Was I right? Was it just a non-event? Was it boring as fuck?
Yeah, massive non-event.
A little bit.
The one thing I heard this morning that's coming in the state of play potentially next month, July. Yeah, we're not quite July yet. that obviously because Sony wasn't there, Dead Space, a new Dead Space. So I would be very, very happy for that.
Also, Bioshock 4, I heard that floating around recently.
Okay. Yep. So
I've not played Dead Space. It was one of those. It was one of those era-defining games. Yeah, you're looking at me like I just never played it.
Dead Space was amazing for. I mean, once again, it was just a fucking. It was just a phenomenal game. Like it was probably one of the first games that I went into. Fuck, was the first one on PS2 or PS3? Must have been PS3. The graphics were too good for PS2. Yeah. So there was no HUD. There was no HUD. Every piece of information you need to know was on screen. Was on Isaac, the character. His health bar was represented in the color and the length of the segments on the spinal pieces of his suit. The stasis, which was your slow down time on moving things, was represented by a semicircle about his shoulder blade. The amount of ammo that you had was represented in a hologram that was above your gun. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just a straight shooter. I mean, they went out of their way to say that the only way that you could kill the enemies was dismemberment. They said straight out shooting wasn't good. Yeah, you had to dismember. And so the original, the cutter you get goes vertical and your alt fire goes horizontal. So whichever enemy you're up against, you could switch. And the best thing was kneecapping cunts. When they're running full bore towards you, fucking hit them in the knee, take out the bottom half of one of their legs. They either start limping or they crawl on the ground. And then you take out an arm because they're crawling on their arms. You take out one arm and they start slugging towards you on the other arm. And I mean, it was fantastic on those sides. The one thing that, like, I'm a massive sci-fi fan, as we all are, but has been covered many, many times. The way that there was no map in the first one. I don't think there might have been a very distorted holographic map, but the way that you found your way to your next objective, Isaac would hold his hand like that and let out a very sci-fi ping, and the line would drop from his glove to the ground and would run along the line on the ground through the doorways and walls to where your next objective was. And it was just this beautiful blue neon ping that would just fly out from his gloved hand. And it was just everything they did, that entire world and mythos that they built for 1 and 2. 3 was good, but not as good. It's just the whole construction of those worlds was fantastic.
You mentioned HUD there. A quick little side thing, just very, very quickly. Did you very much enjoy in one of the recent episodes of Bad Batch when they went to Hunter's HUD when he? Yeah. Full Republic Commando. Yeah.
It was exactly that little trip, and it was there for like fucking 10 seconds. It was fantastic,
so good,
and it had. All the symbols were the same and everything. And that was obviously Dave Filoni going, "Hey guys, we haven't forgotten about you. Here you go."
Yeah. But read us out your list, Pinks. Cool. I want to hear your list.
Oh, my list. Oh, well, these are just the ones that I kind of teased out, and they're only for Ubisoft and Xbox Bethesda. Beyond Diablo 2 Remastered. So they're releasing a new version of Diablo 2. It looks sexy as shit. If you're a fan of the original game, I think it looks pretty amazing. It's not just a remastering though. They've updated the graphics engine so that I think a lot of the magic effects are different now. So things that they kind of had to fudge with the original game engine, they're able to execute the way that they originally intended in the remaster. So that's cool. So Ubisoft.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where to start? AC Valhalla, I thought it was interesting that they talked about the second expansion, which is the Siege of Paris in Francia. I think that'll be interesting historically. It's the right. I feel like it's the right contextual next move for Ivor's kind of story for the Viking invasion of, of that area. So England, they've done England now, they've done Ireland. To move into France, I think is the right next move. It's interesting that they've said that this is the first Assassin's Creed game where they're going to be fully supporting the game and releasing content for free and paid expansions into a second year. So it's cool if you like the game. It's interesting if you look at them extending their dev cycle, because typically you kind of release a game, 12 months of expansions, and that's usually between 2 and 4 expansions, and then the developer essentially closes that game off to say, we're done with this, we're on to the next game. There are some interesting rumours about, and I actually don't think they're rumours, I just couldn't find a reference to it in E3 footage, where they've said AC Valhalla is their highest grossing game of all time. So they've recognised it as their most successful game, and they believe that the success of Valhalla is because they focus so much on the RPG elements that their next game will be a far higher focus on RPG. It's basically going to be an RPG game. And I think they're wrong. I think they've missed the fucking point. I think they've not listened to their fans effectively. They've listened to the dollars coming into their bank account to say this game has been successful, but I think they've interpreted the fact that this game has been grossing higher sales for the wrong fucking reasons. Because to me, and it is sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a quick question because you know this, Pete. Is this one of the first Assassin's Creed games that's cross-gen? Like released like on PS4 and PS5? Like, is that going to affect your sales?
I don't think it is.
Did
because
PS3 and PS4 have a crossover?
Black Flag.
Yeah, Black Flag, you're right. That was a release title for PS4 and you could back buy it for PS3. It was at the same time as Grand Theft Auto. So Grand Theft Auto 5 and GTA Online was exactly the same boat. But no, I think it's not like that doesn't contribute to their bottom line. So if you bought the PS4 version, and in fact you can only play, or you could only sell the PS4 version of Valhalla anyway. But
Tom, Pete's audio wasn't fucking up for you then? It was just me?
No, it definitely was. Yeah, Peter, you just sounded like you were talking underwater.
Oh, okay. Are we back now?
No, you're back now. You're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. So the network fart. So where was I? So when I don't think it's contributing to the bottom line, the cross-gen, because you bought it for PS4 and played it on PS5 as a PS5 version of the game. It's not like anyone went out and bought 2 copies of the game, one for their old and one for their new console. So I don't think that's what made it successful. I think what made it successful, and maybe I'm biased because it's driving towards what I want to see out of an AC game, is it started to get back to its roots of being a Thief style, and anyone who's played the original Thief games has got to be in their 30s now, but like a in the shadows assassin game, as opposed to this big wide open RPG with side quests and skills progressions. And I did say a few episodes ago when I reviewed AC Valhalla as a game that it reminded me of a cheap version of Witcher 3. Yeah. But it's never going to challenge Witcher for the depth of RPG that is Witcher. So why the fuck would they concentrate their next game on the RPG elements more than the assassin elements? I think they've totally missed the mark.
I would imagine they're looking at the success of other games and going around at the moment being like, well, that's got an RPG element. Let's up the RPG element. People clearly love RPGs. And I guess
think it's a mistake.
Generally, I can completely agree with that. But I think also generally, like, when you think of an RPG game, you're thinking of a big single-player experience. And I think with the current, us going into lockdown for 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, shit, what am I going to play, like, for the next 2 weeks? I've got 4 games lined up. I'm going to smash through a couple and then go into that. Like, maybe they're thinking, like, that's going to attract people to buy it outright if there is that big RPG element, because it does become a time chunk.
Yeah, perhaps. But having said that, they've just announced that they're going to release expansions actively, develop expansions into 2022 for the game they've already released. So I don't think it's just a raw money grab. I just think they're misunderstanding what fans are telling them. The one overall comment I will say for a theme that I picked up through all of E3 is there is a shit ton of co-op multiplayer games cross-platform, and I think
Can I just jump in for 2 seconds before you go past Assassin's Creed? Don't know if you touched on it, but there was rumours. Didn't seem to be anything that was officially announced at E3, but there was rumours that the next AC would be Japan. Well, Japan, I heard.
So there's lots of unsubstantiated rumours from unknown accounts with no posts on Reddit at the moment. Yeah. So there was Japan, there was India, which come up regularly because they made those mini games they did the trilogy of mini games, and India and Japan were two interesting settings for the three.
Was India and China.
Was it China? Sorry.
Yeah, it was China, yeah. But just Japan, they'd be absolutely, if they were, the only way that you could get away with doing Japan is if they made a better game than Ghost of Tsushima, and that's not going to happen. Under their current model, they're not going to be able to do it.
I agree.
Well, anyway, Tsushima apparently is getting a DLC for a whole new island.
Yeah, standalone.
Oh, cool.
Standalone. I have it on my screen here. Ghost of Ishimura, which apparently is the island between Tsushima and the mainland, which I think would be a very, very interesting. If it was like a fucking 10 or 12 hour little extra experience, I think it'd be amazing. I want to play more of that, and I'm seriously thinking about going back and playing it because I just want to take my time and go through that world again slowly because it's fucking gorgeous.
It is. I still haven't played it. I really do need to sit down and play it.
Just treat yourself to it. You deserve it.
Just a couple of things that I picked up. Is it Starfield? Starfield is Bethesda. Sorry, say that again?
Starfield is the Bethesda.
Yeah. So that's another science fiction, in spacefaring kind of exploration and combat game like Star Citizen that we've been waiting for a long time, and is now announced as Xbox and PC only, which pisses me off. And the other Xbox Bethesda game was Battlefield 2042. Now, Battlefield is a huge intellectual property. 2042 looks fucking amazing. They had some live footage of unscripted, I think it was 102 or 104 player real-time footage. So it'll be the biggest cross-platform multiplayer co-op maps of any game ever. And it looks amazing. The technology, being that it's set 20 years in the future is awesome, or 21 years in the future is awesome. It's predictable in that it's realistic. I would love to play it, but to lock it down to Xbox and PC only, I think that's a major mistake. To move a global, hugely popular IP to lock out one of the major console gamers, I think is a stupid move. And it's exactly what I said I was worried about last episode.
You sure it's Xbox and PS exclusive?
PC exclusive. It was
Games Radar says release date maps PS5 and Xbox Series X. Now everything you need to know. Battlefield 2042.
Well, it's EA.
I hope I'm wrong.
It's not Bethesda.
No.
EA
You're right. It is an EA game, but it was linked to the Xbox E3 live stream.
It's not exclusive.
Yeah, but you get EA access on the PlayStation. There's no way they're not putting Battlefield through that.
I hope that I misread it, but at the end at the end of the video presentation, it did definitely say Xbox/PC exclusive. So
they might do they do like some map pack or some like glass that's
or they release it 3 days before PS5.
Yeah.
I pray that's true.
Nah, there's no way they're not putting Battlefield on PlayStation. Like they'd be shooting themselves in the foot with a hand cannon and taking off their entire foot.
Other ones on my list. There's only 3 more. So we find out what happens when a soldier from the Battlefield series and an XCOM agent have sex and have a baby. We get Rainbow Six Extraction, which is
okay. Good. Okay.
I got there.
That was a very long bow to draw, but yeah.
Not really. We've got like original, like balaclavaed, hardcore fucking agents of kicking down doors and blowing people up with flashbangs and then shooting them. Traditional kind of Battlefield, and then a bunch of fucking alien enemies. And it reminded me, interestingly, of Division. It reminded me a lot of Division. It's a co-op, multiplayer, open world, science fiction. Jeez, I've had too many beers. Science fiction first-person shooters. It's cross-platform, and I think like that was a theme for me for E3 this year. Is everything that is multiplayer co-op is cross-platform. It doesn't matter what console you bought anymore.
Sony finally came to the table and said, "Yeah, why are we not doing fucking cross-platform? It's stupid."
I don't really have any interest in the Rainbow Six IP. I haven't played Siege. It didn't appeal to me. And to take Siege and kind of push it into an alien kind of, an alien foe just doesn't really interest me. The game mechanics themselves is just another first-person shooter. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. I didn't stand out.
The only thing for me with Siege was a mate of mine was in the top 10 in Australia. That man played a lot of fucking Rainbow Six Siege. But yeah, he was competitively playing in the top 10. But that's the only reason that game ever came on my radar, because he was like, "Hey man, just want to let you know I made the top 10 in Australia." And I was like, "Sorry, what? You should be shouting that from the rooftops."
Yeah.
Impressive.
Rocksmith Plus. I don't know if you guys ever played the original Rocksmith game with the physical guitars. So you could take the game shipped with a little dongle that plugged into your PlayStation 4 via USB and had a 1/4-inch jack in it, and you could plug an electric or an electric acoustic guitar into that jack, and it would detect the note that you were playing, and you could play. It was very much a Guitar Hero style interface, but you would look. The idea was that it was music teaching as opposed to just a video game. So they've just announced Rocksmith Plus, which seems to extend that concept. So I still think there is cabled. So there'd be 1/4-inch jack to USB if you've got an electric guitar, but it supports electric, acoustic, and bass, and now extends that to an app that you install on your mobile phone on Android or iOS that is a microphone with enough technology in it to detect the note that you're playing, so that you can actually tune your guitar through the microphone. The microphone plumbs into the game, and you can now play the game with pretty much any guitar. You just set up the app, stick your phone next to you, and just carry on playing. The interesting thing with it is it's a subscription-only video game. So, yeah. So it's going to be one of those, for $10 a month, you can access our entire library after spending $90 on the original game on disc. It's a cool concept. I actually endorse the idea of teaching people how to play a physical instrument through a video game. That's cool. It extends technology into kind of the real world, but to make $12 a month, whatever it'll end up costing, just kind of pisses me off. And the last one was Avatar. Yeah. The Avatar video game looks as gorgeous as the movie did.
Fuck Avatar. What a waste of time.
Oh, I completely agree.
I never got into that film. Never got into that film.
No, I can agree with the fucking Marvel. Oh man, no! When I saw that, I haven't even watched the trailer for it. I cannot bring myself. I'm just like, I do not give a fuck that there's a video game. I do not give a fuck that there's 4 more movies. Like, come on. Like, it's been so long since this fucking shit. Oh, yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy that he's... And don't get me wrong, James Cameron is a fucking master, absolute master. But to think that he can make 4 masterpieces after the first one that wasn't a masterpiece, it was technologically excellent because the 3D in it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
but it was a standard story. 3D. Yeah, but it was not groundbreaking in any other aspect.
I went and saw it in the cinema and I fell asleep.
Yep. It was Fern Gully live action. It's just a fucking 4 more is insane. Insane.
Yeah. Fern Gully wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. But look, I didn't mind the movie. I thought it was cool that it was you're right, exactly what you said, Dan. It was a technology demonstration video. The idea of taking mocap one step further and integrating the physical features of the live actors into the 3D CGI models. I don't think it was quite the first time it was done, because if you go back to something like Dragonheart, you can see Sean Connery's physical features in the dragon's face while he's talking. But I think it was probably the first solid execution of the CGI models taking license from the physical actors. You could see Sigourney Weaver in it. Who was the main dude in it?
Joel Edgerton.
It wasn't fucking Joel Edgerton.
Wasn't
Sam Worthington.
Oh, no. There we go.
It was Sam Worthington.
Some Aussie bloke who thinks he made it big.
I wasn't game enough to
That's how much
volunteer the name.
attention I paid to that shitty film. Fuck you, James Cameron.
But I thought it was a hippie story, and that's probably an unpopular view, but it was very much a Save the Planet kind of story.
But it was 100%. 100% it was a Save the Planet. But anybody who wants to spend that much time on making a great, amazing, groundbreaking 3D and motion capture, and then names the fucking metal thereafter unobtainium. Oh man, like that was some serious. That was a lot of tech fucking background shit, and not a lot on fucking story side. Man, I'm sorry.
Also, if you're making a Save the Planet film, you probably shouldn't invest that much in computer generated technology, because you're just fucking killing the planet making the fucking film.
Look, James Cameron hasn't been the same since Terminator 2, as far as I'm concerned. He was a masterful storyteller for someone else's story. But you go to Titanic, and he spent a fuck ton of personal money and a shitload of time developing real world technology. So he invented essentially UAV submersibles to explore the Titanic wreck. He did some cool shit in the movie, but it was a fucking terrible movie. It was just way too fluffy, and I don't understand why he spent as much money as he did out of his personal pocket to do it. But whatever. Avatar is clearly James Cameron's magnum opus. His final masterwork. He doesn't want to make one movie. He wants to make 4 or 5 that he will hang his hat on and say, my legacy, in 100 years, people will still know the name James Cameron, like we know Leonardo da Vinci.
Because of Terminator 2.
And it will be because
it's not going to be Avatar, man. It's going to be T2.
I'm not advocating that it will be. I'm just saying, surely
if that's what he's making his magnum opus, that dude is smoking too much pot at the moment and needs to calm the fuck down.
He's not with Linda Hamilton anymore, is he?
No, I don't think
he divorced her. I think he divorced her a while ago. I think that's what he's trying to do. I don't agree with it. I think he's a fucking moron to make 4 or 5 movies out of that concept. But, obviously if you're going to spend that much time and money on a series of movies, that is your magnum opus. It's not like he's got another new IP with 5 movies stuck in him, before he retires. So that's going to be what he hangs his
Ridley
hat on.
Scott. Same as Ridley Scott was trying to make the Prometheus and Alien. I forget what even the next one after Prometheus was. Alien something.
I haven't seen it. Which is
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't fantastic either. But that was Ridley Scott was in his 70s or 80s when he did Prometheus, and then he did one after it, and it was like this was meant to be Ridley Scott's absolute final Covenant. That's it, final masterpiece. But they were average. Like Ridley Scott, you made an amazing movie in the 70s, and you've made some fucking fantastic shit after that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you just like these ones didn't. There should have been someone there saying to them over their shoulder, like, "Where's their non-yes man that people at this age with that much money should have?" These creatives, these people saying, "No, this isn't good enough. I mean, you can't have this as spend some more time, put it in the oven, run to the right, don't run straight."
Yeah. Try and do something that's a little different instead of predictable. Because I've got to say, every movie since Aliens, probably 3, has been even Aliens 3 itself, but Aliens 3 was an acceptable cap on that trilogy. Everything since that has just been utterly predictable. There hasn't been any.
What do you mean? You mean Alien vs Predator was predictable? What are you talking about? That's crazy talk, Peter.
I'm not even going to respond. They've announced the Gladiator 2. I'm just IMDbing Ridley Scott. They're doing a sequel to Gladiator. That's one of those movies they should leave the fuck alone.
No, it was one and done. There is no more to that story. It's done.
Totally agree. He died.
Maximus died in the end for a fucking reason. That was the culmination of the length of that movie and his life story, that he died at the end. Like, he did what he needed to do.
It was a beautiful movie. Yeah. It reminds me of the movie
Maybe he's going to do like a... maybe he's going to turn him into like a Kratos figure, and he's going to take down the Roman gods in...
That would be a good place to take it. In fact, Ridley Scott, I tell you what, mate, as a producer, he is not resting. He was born in 37. Someone do the math on that. So he's an old dude.
Fuck, man.
But
that's 80s.
He's got Alien TV series, a Pompeii TV series, Death on the Nile is a movie, The Last Duel, House of Gucci, they're all movies. Empire of the Summer Moon, Blade Runner TV series, 12 episodes announced. He's announced War Party, an untitled Alien prequel, the Cartel TV series, Potsdamer Platz movie, Kitbag movie, Gladiator 2 movie, Emma's War movie. Emma's War is a book, I'm certain.
There's absolutely no way this motherfucker's seeing these all out.
Earthless and David. He has like 7 or 8 movies and 3 TV series announced. I don't see it. You're absolutely right, Dan. As
a producer, though, he's just chucked a bunch of cash at them, being like, I'm old. Like, let's see if it gets me some money to live out some more days in my sunny retirement home.
But throw the Ridley Scott name on it, and I mean, he's amazing.
I don't know if you've seen his interviews, though. They are fascinating. The guy does have vision. He is a master storyteller. He's a Stanley Kubrick style storyteller, and he's from that era, ironically.
I remember watching Prometheus in the movies, and the first couple of minutes of Prometheus is the maker guys. What are they? Are they called the makers? No, what are they called? The engineers.
I'm sure they're called.
No, the engineers. The engineers come to Earth or come to a planet, and the one goes down into the waterfall and breathes the black shit in, and then disintegrates, and his DNA seeds the planet and everything like that.
And seeds, yeah.
But that opening shot of the engineer ship and everything coming through the clouds to a very idealistic human planet or pre-civilized planet, open wildlife. That is a beautiful piece of cinematography. And I went into that thinking, this movie is going to blow my fucking mind. Like, this is just going to be something absolutely gorgeous and a different step in the sci-fi tree from what the beauty of Blade Runner was. And then that got completely destroyed in the first.
The rug got pulled out from your feet.
Like completely. It was the fucking magic. It was the tablecloth off the table and everything falls over all at once. But it doesn't just fall over; it completely falls off the table and smashes into 1,000 pieces.
I totally agree. That had so much promise, and the actors they brought in for the movie, the actors they brought back for the movie, it should have been the end cap to that. And it even would have been okay. Excuse me. It even would have been okay if they had ended it on a cliffhanger that obviously was designed to lead into another movie, with the intention to never lead into another movie. It's okay for people. I mean, certainly, novelists have known this for 100 years. It's okay to leave a story unfinished. It's okay to wrap the end of the story and leave some threads untied off. I think that's designed to let the reader figure out what they think the end of the story is. I think that's a cool concept, and we just don't do it in movies anymore. We have to pre-chew and spoon-feed everything to everybody. I was just on the novelist. I just tweaked my own memory. Have you seen that they've announced a Isaac Asimov Foundation TV series? Isaac Asimov, the grandfather of science fiction writing.
I know who Isaac Asimov is.
Yep. So his core conceptual universe was based on the Foundation series of novels that defines most science fiction that most people see today on TV and movies. They are now making a TV series called Foundation. And I've got to say, it looks fucking cool. As an Asimov TV series, it looks fucking cool.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, they've done a few things like that over the times with some bits and pieces on Stan and Philip K. Dick writings and that. So it would be good if they can pull it off, but I'll reserve judgment.
Who was Philip K. Dick's TV series? Because I remember we talked about that on the podcast. It was Electric Dreams. It was
on Stan.
Yeah. I've got to say, I love his books, and it's almost gone into, alternate literature, his novels, because they are a little odd.
Weird. Yes. I wouldn't say a little. I would say extremely.
They're out there, but I couldn't get into the TV series. And I felt bad about it. I felt guilty that I couldn't get into the TV series.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys keep talking. I'm going to disappear for a second. Do we want to take a break or
wrap it up, don't we?
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, we've almost been going for 2-3 hours. I don't know how long this has gone for.
It's about 2 hours. So I think we should end this episode.
It's 5 o'clock and we started at 2. So definitely get up to 2.5.
The amazement of podcast time, yeah. All right, well, fine, we'll end it there. I'm happy to keep drinking and keep talking shit, but it'll be less and less comprehensible for a podcast episode, so you're probably right.
Definitely, we were going to spiral into just nonsense shortly. It's just absolutely going to go pear-shaped.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll be back in a week or two for the next lockdown podcast episode.
Well, I think we've probably got one more on recording, don't we? Seems it's 9th, which is 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from yesterday. So 13 days until we can actually leave. So, I think there's going to be at least one more like this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Cool.
Hopefully by then
watching.
I've got a couple more platinums under my belt. You're always playing some PlayStation.
Limber up.
Good to see you prioritising, Tom.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Too easy. Thanks, gang.
Bye.